Number 4, choose the correct drawing order. Now, you'll actually find around the country and around the world there are subtle variations on how this works. So it's not super prescriptive. There are multiple ways that this can happen. And just because this is sort of a standard way of doing it doesn't mean that on any one given project you do this exactly. Sometimes there's sort of some weird thing that makes you want to change the order because there's another issue that's more important and you want to bring it forward or something. Like, people do various things out in the real world. But from an NCARB standpoint, the idea is sort of what's the base way that we should imagine how the order of the drawings should go, so that everybody can figure out quickly how to find the information. So you remember that like one of the main things that an architect does is actually communicate. So weirdly, we think of ourselves as designing spaces and all of that. But in fact, when it really comes down to it, contractually, what we're doing is we're making a communication tool between the owner and the general contractor. The general contractor's contract only makes sense by having a set of drawings and specifications attached to it. So the general contract needs the contract documents that the architect puts together to fulfill that contract so that everybody knows what the point of the contract is. So if it's a communication tool between other people, well, then it needs to be able to be used as a communication tool. And so a subcontractor or a code official or a building owner, everybody needs to be able to know how to find information quickly. And one simple version of that is, well, if you kind of organize the drawings in the way that people expect them to be organized, they know how to find the information quickly and easily. And that's going to help in terms of it being a communication tool. And then there's a bunch of other issues about sort of standards of ways that different kinds of information are presented and ways that dimensions are done and things like that. But this one issue is just to help make it possible for different people in different walks of life and different parts of the contractual landscape to be able to kind of find the information that they're looking for quickly and easily. So what is the sort of general way this works? Well, the general way this works is that you're going to find there's going to be a title sheet. Title sheet often can be one sheet, could be 10 sheets, could be 30, 40 sheets for a very, very big project. So there's a title section. On smaller projects, it's probably just one sheet. And that is sometimes called a T sheet, sometimes it's called G, sometimes it's called an A architectural sheet. Different people will use different ways of doing it, but the concept of the title sheet will kind of give all that front information. Who's the owner? Who's the architect? Who's the GC? What's the address? What's the location of the project? What code is being used? Sort of the big general things that everybody would need to know. And then from there, we're going to go eventually to all the architectural issues. But before we get to the A sheets, we're actually going to look at the stuff that happens before the full building part actually gets designed. It gets not designed, but constructed. And that's going to be the civil and the landscaping. So we're going to start with the title sheet, then we're going to go to the civil work. So civil engineering is all of that stuff about the site. It's all, everything, the way the civil engineers always describe it to me is 6 inches above the ground and down. So it's all the curbs, it's all the parking, it's all the underground piping, it's the topography issues, it's storm drains, it's all of that stuff. So it's the stuff that kind of surrounds the building, if you will. And then the landscape also surrounds the building. And then once we get through with that stuff, now we're into the architectural and we get site plans, floor plans. Eventually we get to elevations. After elevations, we're going to get to sections. Typically after sections, we'll have wall sections. So those kind of explanatory sections. And then we'll eventually get into interior elevations and details and schedules and all of that. So there's a set way that the architectural drawings will be laid out to sort of make logical sense so that people can find it. And once we're done with the architectural sheets, then we're going to start getting into our consultants' information, and we're going to start with structure. So the structural drawings will come right after the architectural drawings. there are lots more potential consultants. And so there could possibly be a logical consultant that would fit in between the architect and the structures, but they're not going to ask you about some esoteric, very, very specific consultant. It'll be some of these sort of more straightforward ones. So after architecture, it's going to come structures. So the foundation details, all of that. Then you're going to get into the framing plans and how the framing is done. Then you're going to get into the details that are the structural details. So all of that stuff will go in a logical order in the structural section. And then we're going to get to the MPE. So that's going to be mechanical, plumbing, and electric. Now, sort of oddly, most people actually refer to it as MEP, mechanical, electric, or plumbing. But most places around the country will actually do it in the order MPE. I have seen it done both ways in exam prep, so it may be enough of the time that it's MEP that's okay, but it would only be one of those two. It wouldn't be, you wouldn't put E first or something like that. So I would suggest that you think of it as MPE, and when we look, we find D is the one that meets all of those issues. So if we take a look at C, we have architecture and then electric and plumbing and mechanical before structures. That doesn't make sense in terms of the flow of information. If we look at B, we have landscape happening after the architecture. If we look at A, we have civil after structures, which also, again, doesn't really make any sense. So it seems a little crazy to say there's a specific order. Like I said, different people will do different things in different locations. But if you're trying to make it a communication tool, you're going to use some system like this in order to make it so that people can find the information quickly and easily.